All right, I'll go ahead and start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the July edition of 3A Composites Live Learning. Today, we're going to talk about the return of trade shows and in-person events, as well as some other general business topics that we're all interested during this time. I'll start out introducing our cast of characters, as always. First up is Hannah Wells, working behind the scenes. It's strange for me to use the name Hannah Wells. For those of you that don't know, this is the first time we've been live since Hannah had a kind of little bit of a significant life change in that she got married. So it's a little bit strange for me to use Wells as her last name, but a huge congratulations to Hannah. Also want to introduce Steve Anderson, our West Coast region, our Western region manager. He's with us, as always. Doug Twitchell, our Director of Distributor Relations, is with us. My name is Alan Plunkett. I'm Director of Retail Design and Sustainability. And today we have a super special guest here. I'll introduce Tim Bennett. When I'm done, Tim, I'll give you a minute to brag a little bit on your fantastic company, Image Option, one of my favorite companies in this entire industry. Tim, along with Dave and Brian and Dina. Everybody knows Dina at Image Options. Everybody loves. They are fantastic. They've invited me out a number of times to some special events that they've had out there. Absolutely treat everyone first class. You couldn't be a better group of people. So when we came up with the idea for this month's live learning on events and trade shows, I couldn't think of anybody better in the entire country to bring on than Tim Bennett for his wealth of knowledge. And I can tell you firsthand, I've been in this industry a little while with all this gray hair. I've been in pretty much every print service provider's facility in the United States and Canada over the last 20 years. And I'll put Image Options up with anybody out there as far as a total package of a facility. Absolutely amazing people, and super excited to have Tim on today. So Tim, I'll stop talking and let Tim introduce himself and tell us a little bit about Image Options.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, Image Options. Thank you for the kudos there. We've been in business since '99. We've been in 3 different facilities. As we've grown, we now have 128,000 square feet in Orange County, California, that is, not Florida. And we have another facility up in the Bay Area where we specialize in corporate interiors, etc. And yeah, we've managed to get through 9/11. We managed to get through 2008 recession, and we weren't expecting this one, but hopefully we're coming out the other side, but it's slow.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thanks, Tim. I'll let Doug take over. He's going to kind of be the moderator for today's session. So from here, hand it off to Doug. So if anything goes wrong from here, blame it on Doug.
Thanks, Alan. Well, look, today's program, you guys, we're just gonna do some information about the trade show business, and it's near and dear to a lot of our hearts. So, you know, today's discussion, I want to try to keep it away from being too much of a history lesson, because really what we're going through right now isn't history. It's current. This is a moving target. We've all seen in the last few weeks that this is evolving, and really what it's taught a lot of companies is how to be nimble, how we've got to navigate this really uncertain market that we've all been kind of faced with. So, you know, companies like Image Options and 3A, you know, we see the trade show business as something that's really important to our business. It's an important market segment that we service. So, you know, pre-pandemic, we'll take a little bit of a look at what our businesses look like. And we'll kind of look back at March of 2020 when everything came to a screeching halt. In-person trade shows, events, things like that just came to a stop immediately, and how our companies worked with that, and what we did to keep people employed. How did we adapt to those changes? And then I think the thing that's really interesting too to talk about is what did we do? What adaptations did we make during that time that's going to carry on? There's some things that we learned during that pandemic, and when things were having to be adjusted, that are going to be ways that we're going to continue in the future. So I want to take a look at those, and then look at the trade show business now as it's coming back, look at the impact that it has on graphics, and not only on the graphic of what's being said, but also the materials that those graphics need to be on, because things have changed. The trade show business is not going to be the same as it was. Trade show companies are talking about one-way aisles so that they're minimizing contact with each other, and how that messaging is going to be portrayed, and the amount of cleaning that's going on, and the frequency of that cleaning, and the employment issues that they're having, because a lot of these companies that ran these trade show facilities, they lost all their people, and now they're scrambling trying to get them back because a lot of those people found other employment. So with that, we want to kind of get started, and Tim, maybe you can tell us a little bit about Image Options pre-pandemic. What were the things that you guys were doing? What was the market focus for Image Options, and kind of day-to-day life, or what you guys focused on?
Yeah, we're a very diverse company, and we do a lot of oddball stuff as well as straightforward commodity printing. And the theory behind that started a long time ago, because if you're in just the trade show business, that has cycles. If you're in just retail, it has cycles. So how do you put enough firepower on the floor to be able to handle the bigger shows, the bigger rollouts if you're retail? You need those two to cohabit somewhat. The difficulty with the trade show side of things is that people expect a certain level of fabrication because they don't want just stuff showing up. Not everybody, but there's trade show graphics and then there's trade show graphics, right? So once you're getting into frames and all kinds of things like that, it's a totally different set of other skill sets that you need. So what we did way back, probably in the early 2000s, was we started to see two channels: exhibit, which is where we started, exhibit graphics that is, and then retail, as the equipment started to get faster and faster, because the original machines, let's face it, in comparison to today, they were dog slow. So we grew that, and then back in 2017, we realized that how much experiential graphic design, those are the corporate interiors, that is somewhat overused term now. It's got to be a destination. And so what is a destination? It's got all kinds of other stuff in it, and it requires fabrication. So we had been working with a company up in the Bay Area that was very successful in this. And because of all you're in the tech corridor, right, in Silicon Valley, and they had a list of who's who in that business. They had a lot of expertise in it, and we acquired that company. And that was a great addition. So then we became three lines of business: trade show and event, retail, and corporate interiors, otherwise known as EGD, should I say, experiential graphic design. So the image that you can see up on the left there is a classic example of experiential graphic design. That is all fabrication. I believe that's at Adobe Corporation, but those are all balls that are on steel spindles, and they're different colors and whatever, and people make patterns out of them and things like that. So I guess if you're a coder, you sort of see that, whatever that is. And that wall wraps all the way around. Tremendous amount of work and skill set in that. So that's experiential. And then lower down, you can see a classic, very large serpentine ring banner. There's a circle in front, but behind it is a very long serpentine thing. We have CAD engineers in house. We CAD stuff out. We print. We obviously have a metal shop and wood shop, but so we build all those structures, and then we'll print and sew and wrap them on there. And then you've got the activations, which is why that gas pump's there. That was an amazing project for an old closed gas station on Melrose up in Hollywood there. And Adidas were launching a new Kylie Jenner shoe called the Adidas Falcon. We rented this gas station, power washed it all down. The pumps were still there, but everything else had gone, you know, all the lifts and things in the service base. And we literally turned it into an environment for a one-night major party and activation with all these people coming. And that kind of event is strictly for how many postings you can get on Instagram. That's where it is. And so an amazing projects. And then down below, you can see the lot of fabrication there from the wood side of our business. And it's brilliant stuff. So there's some really hardcore creative people in our group that know how to work with the architects and everything else. So that's it in a nutshell. We're a three-legged stool, and thank heavens we were diversified to that point when the pandemic hit, because it helped us get through that when we had to do other things. So that's it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. And Steve, maybe you can give us some heads up on what 3A Composites and pre-pandemic, what the company focus was.
I think pre-pandemic, you know, especially as you know, we ended up 2019 real well, and in Q1 of 2020 was a record start for the company in all market segments, whether that's print, trade show, display. All of our product groups were growing nicely. So the year started off in a great way across the board. And then, of course, in March, everything goes dark, right? So that's kind of a quick snapshot. But again, it was the first quarter was the making of a good 2020, but unfortunately, it didn't continue.
So speaking of March of 2020,
it'll never end. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Tim, speaking of March of 2020, it comes, everything is shut down all of a sudden. You know, what does the Image Options do at that point? What were you guys talking about? What were you looking at as options? You know, like a lot of companies, you know, we all thought, well, this will be over in a couple of months. You know, by July, we'll all be back to normal and that type of thing. What was the thought process at Image Options come March and April of 2020?
Yeah, I mean, that hit us like a ton of bricks. Fortunately, we were closed for little less than 2 days. What happened was we happened to get involved with a shield project, face shields. You can see the nurses to your lower left. And that was kind of almost like a mercy call. We got a call from one of our employees' daughters who runs the ICU, and they were panicking that they didn't have enough shields, and you know, this thing was just exposed, right? So she asked her father if we could make a few of these before we shut down completely. Well, obviously that gave us the thought immediately that if we could get emergency you know, stay open through emergency needs, we'd be you know, at least we'd be able to think our way through this, because, you know, we were coming up for air at that point, trying to figure out what was going on. And long story short, we engineered one of these masks. We took it back the following day. The doctors asked for a couple of changes, and we started making these face shields. And we got into the shield business, and we ended up, including our 186 people that we had on staff, we ended up with 40 temps, and we arranged all our tables socially distanced, you know, paper on them every day and cleaning them between every shift and doing all the mandatory and sensible stuff. And we actually got up to 78,000 shields a day at one point at our maximum output. And then, of course, then we started struggling with supply chain and all the other things that came along. But we did a tremendous amount of what you traditionally think of as, you know, very, very low margin work, but we were helping out, and we were still open, and we had our people there, and it was making us feel a lot better than where we were 72 hours before it, so. And then we got into hospital bed type configurations and, dividers and everything else that comes along with it. Working with partners like 3A on a lot of the materials, etc. And we obviously worked with 3A for many years. But that was basically our pandemic pivot.
Great. Steve, what would 3A do during that time?
Well, we had to try and pivot as well. I mean, if you didn't make plastic that you couldn't see through, you were having a tough time. So, and I see the pictures that Tim sent us, and you can see some of the things that we pivoted towards, and that was, temporary hospitals. You can see some of those wall panels, temporary enclosures for testing. There was a lot of different things that we had to do. And, we manufacture a wide variety of materials, which, we have a diverse, product line. And, we were able to provide, temporary materials in our foam core, recyclable temporary materials in DISPA, which is our 100% paper recyclable substrate. We refocused on those markets that we felt were not going to be affected as much, i.e. the grocery store industry, the pharmacies, the online web internet-based businesses. So, we were scrambling and we took a deep breath, and then we went from there. And in a good thing too, obviously our goal was to keep everybody employed, and we were able to fight through it and do that.
Right.
Yeah, it was really interesting during that time. One of the things unique, talking about these temporary COVID hospitals that were going up inside of different convention centers throughout the country. We were able at 3A to work, with the exposition companies as well as directly with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, with Major General Funkhauser and Lieutenant Colonel Michelli and their design team to get Sintra in as the use of the walls for these for each of the patient rooms in the hospitals. It was great for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because it allowed them to put these pieces that was so incredibly rapid fast that within 2 days that they could put together an entire piece. And it's pretty cool that we got to work with them on designing for this. And then we were also able to work, they chose at each of these different convention centers to work with the exposition company that was currently in place, whether it's McCormick Place in Chicago or the Javits in New Jersey or wherever the convention center is. So 3A Composites, with the breadth of people that we have and the breadth of areas of expertise that we have, we were able to be a really good partner during a difficult time for the Army Corps of Engineers.
And Alan, what were you're in touch all the time with the retail market, and what were retailers doing at that time? What was their feedback to you?
Panic. Basically, a lot of contingency plan for contingency plan. What if this happens? What if that? At the beginning, nobody knew what was going to happen, so everybody was just planning for every possible outcome. But really, the big thing that came out of it was a total reevaluation of everything they're doing. A lot of retailers just kind of went back to square one and said, "Look, if we're starting our store all over again, how would we do it?" It was a chance for them to completely reevaluate traffic flow, different processes, re-examining what materials are inside their stores. So it was a lot of panic. They were dealing with all sorts of infrastructure problems, but a lot of reevaluation would be the biggest thing I'd say they were doing during that downtime.
Right. Okay, let's look at where we were now, maybe 2-3 months ago, and we're starting to hear things are coming back. We're hearing about trade shows coming back. We're hearing about retailers opening, restaurants opening. Tim, what are some of the things that were being talked about at Image Options as we start to look toward the future, that some of this business is going to be coming back and coming back soon?
Yeah, well, the word crapshoot comes to mind. You know, I used to work for a technology company, which is how I got here from the UK to here years ago. And the CEO used to have an expression, change is good because only the fittest keep up. And, you know, to be adaptive is the most important strength you can have in a time like this. You know, I mean, I know you said we didn't want to turn this into a history lesson, but if you look, if you've ever read anything about pandemics or financial collapses, the recovery time is always 3 times longer than originally predicted. I mean, by human nature, we want to be positive, right? So, especially if you're a sales guy, you know, I mean, we wanted it back. So, you know, we were hearing all these indicators. We're listening to Printing United and all the other groups that we're members of. And, you know, really, it was like throwing a dart. And the reality of it is nobody knows now, for sure. We have got a lot of wishes coming together here if we can get it. And we even have some new equipment on order, big equipment. And so we're certainly thinking positive and we got to get this back. But, you know, we just keep having these turns. And then, you know, the country's not flat. What's going on? We're a lot better off down here in Orange County than we are just up the road in LA County, where they've just got rampant infections still going on. But we're hoping that these quiet areas and with some sensible thinking, we will start to see these things. We actually have, as we speak, our first real trade show event in-house at the moment that we're producing for another exhibit companies. We're usually the secret sauce for them behind the scenes, you know. So, but you know, they're the went away in most cases anyway.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, this is what we're seeing come back, I guess. Actually, retail, to talk positive there, retail in the last 3 months has been really resurgent. I mean, we've got some clients that have year to date bought 3 because, you know, because they went online or they just went underground or whatever it was. Everything in the store is not just out of date, it's ancient. I mean, they've got old models of stuff there. So, you know, everybody should be looking at their existing low-hanging fruit to really, those are going to be the first people to replenish.
Alan, that's probably pretty consistent with what you're hearing, I would imagine, across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's absolutely coming back. Doug, we did a webinar, one of these webinars in January, where we were warning the Roaring 20s part 2 with this, and we were telling people stock up. You know, this is coming. We were talking about, you know, some of the different shortages you were going to see coming down the road. A little bit we talked about inflation that would be coming, but the thing we didn't see coming was the employee shortage. Never saw that coming. You know, it's just interesting the way people in the logistics industry, in the trucking industry, they can't find enough truckers because people transitioned out of that industry during the pandemic, and now they realize they don't want to go back. Life balance, they don't want to go back to driving a truck, you know, across the country and back. So we're seeing a lot of retail every month. Numbers are up. Forecasts continue to be up. That's the bright side. The problem that comes along with that is the supply chain, the increase in prices, and the employee dilemma.
Right. Right. So Tim, as we look at things now and we see things are starting to come back in retail and in trade shows, what are your customers asking you for? Have they changed their specifications? Are they talking about, hey, can I clean this? Is it recyclable products? What's kind of the focus of your customers?
Yeah, it's all of the above, but frankly, they're not being as quite subjective as perhaps they used to be, because we're keeping people up to date with what's available. I mean, in some cases, you know, it's like going in a restaurant, you order your favorite thing and they go, sorry, we don't have it. You know, and it's the same in our industry. And not only that, but some of them, if you were doing plexiglass shields like this dental group that we were doing on the lower left there. I mean, all of a sudden you were buying the consumption of those materials was up through the roof in comparison. Now it's adhesive back vinyls, you know, and things like that. So we've got to fit them into what's available and do that. But sustainability is always a question that some of them have, you know, because the cleaning stuff and things like that. So yeah, it's across the board, frankly.
Okay. And Steve, what are you seeing from the marketplace when it's coming to being a supplier of materials?
Well, I think, you know, the trade show industry is coming back, and you know, you hear things, people are booking trade shows at a higher rate than they did in 2019, and you can see the activity levels. And I think, to Tim's point, I think as we move into the beginning of this, and hopefully it'll continue, it's the response time, the supply chain. Those are the issues, and everybody knows now, as we're into the plastics business, that lead times are extended, costs have increased, freight's an issue. So I think the ability to access materials is going to be a challenge with some of the trade show companies. So, and then manufacturers like ourselves have to be nimble. We have to be able to adapt to provide materials. So it's a perfect storm right now. But it's just a matter of working together, because it's coming. So,
yeah, one of the comments I heard from one of the global leading trade show people was saying to me, the issue is a lot of these big corporations don't want to be the first to get the bad rap, right? I mean, some of these events are going to go off without any problem. We have a big hardware client that was at a show in Las Vegas last week, and he said it wasn't as big a turnout as we expected, but the quality was higher. So you know, they're limiting the number of people perhaps they're sending from a company, but they're sending the people that need to be there, and therefore, as an exhibitor, you're actually looking at a better opportunity, because there's less tire kickers that just want to go to Las Vegas, and the quality buyer is there. So, you know, it's working its way out slowly, but some of these big guys, you know, if you look like that Honda Jet image there lower down, we did that for another exhibit company. That's a big investment. And if they're not going to be able to show up, they don't want to spend that kind of money. So there's this kind of hesitation. I think if you're going to a trade show where there's another 1,500 exhibitors, their investment in their booth size isn't that much if they need to cancel, and they'll wing that one. But if you're going to something as big as this, which was in Geneva, the aircraft show, whatever it is, or if you're a Dreamforce or one of these big corporations, that's a massive, massive commitment. These are $50 and $100 million shows. And they don't want to risk that and suck it up just yet. So I think it'll be the smaller shows where, again, you can be more adaptive and flexible, that we'll see back first. But come on, guys, make more materials. We need it. Keep up.
yeah.
Tim, you mentioned that you have some equipment on order. Is that any of that related to the pandemic? Some things that you may have learned, or applications or markets that you saw that you want to be able to service going forward?
Well, yes, there is a element of truth to that, but you know, we also had time to do some things internally, because we actually had time. You know, I mean, we were down by 50% overnight. That's hard not to take, but we started looking at some of the workflows and some of the different things. And frankly, we're looking at the future. You know, what do we need? Who's going to be in the game? What's the best workflow solution, and things like that. And so we did some ROI work on that, and said that this seems counterintuitive, but let's order it now while we can still get it. And it's on a boat if it ever gets off the boat, you know. So, and if you drive between Long Beach and LA, the port of LA, and you look out the ocean, it is just as far as your eye can see and beyond, tankers waiting to come in. I mean, and that's where a lot of the supply chain is. It's not that it didn't get made. We can't get it in here. So,
somewhere out there's your machine, right? You just keep looking at it with binocular or something. One of those is hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just worried what the freight bill is going to be, which was pre-pandemic would have been 1/5.
Yep.
Sure.
All right. Steve, anything that 3A did that moving forward we're going to continue with?
Well, I guess the point is, I think, we all understand of virtual learning now, right? So, I think we'll continue to do things like that. But I think that the bigger point is, I think we all learn the value of social interaction and the importance of that to all of us in our work lives as well, right? So I think there's pent up demand for, getting to brick and mortar retail. I think there's pent up demand to get into the trade show bit, get out to see people again in the trade shows. So I think we all can appreciate the value of that social interaction and the ability to be able to get together with our customers and our customers' customers face to face versus over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Good. Any last thoughts, you guys, before I wrap it up?
Not unless somebody's got a question, but actually just on that retail thing, people talk about it all the time. It's like, oh, I understand the malls are done and they're closing and everything else. And I think the reality of it is some of them are getting repurposed into different kinds of destination shopping areas. But if you look at the real statistics, yes, the big box guys, the Macy's of the world, they're all reconfiguring. Sears is all but done, and many others. But there are more retail stores opening than closing when you look at just the numbers. So it's like, who are these guys? They're all new companies. They're different kinds of companies. They're not giant like that. But so it's not all doom and gloom. People are reinventing themselves. Even the guys that were only online 2 years ago are now opening up physical stores because people are kind of over the online and sending it back all the time. They want to go and feel the materials, and it's a tactile thing. To your point, we want engagement, and that's where we're going with all of this.
Yeah, I completely agree with Tim, and I'll echo a little bit about that. One of the things that we've seen in retail, it's really just a reinvention of retail, and moving to different kind of location, doing some different things. But the biggest thing that I saw through all origins of one-time bitter enemies, online and brick and mortar, throughout this pandemic, they've kind of learned to come together and realize that they're mutually beneficial to each other. That Tim was speaking of, where online needs to be in a brick and mortar location, and brick and mortar needs to have more of a curbside pickup, or more of a BOPUS, buy online, pick up in store kind of thing. So I think it's been fascinating, the evolution of how those two former enemies are coming together to find out, online needs brick and mortar needs online, and they don't need to just stay out here far apart from each other anymore. And so it's very positive.
That's great, you guys. That's great. And just to kind of wrap up, I want to thank Tim for coming on with us today. We appreciate your valuable insight into this interesting topic. And, I'm hoping that as businesses, as we go through something like this pandemic, that, we don't even know when this is going to be over, but as we go through these things, as businesses, we can look at these things in a couple of different ways. And I hope we've all taken from this that we can learn from these things. We learn that we've got to be creative. We got to react quickly. We got to look for opportunities. We need to look to serve and to be valuable to the markets and to the people of the country. So look forward to seeing everybody at a trade show sometime soon.
Yeah.
Never thought we'd say that, but we are. So
Can't wait to pack my bags. Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. I want to thank Tim. I owe you one next time I'm in SoCal, Tim. Dinner's on me. I owe you one. Thank you so much for your expertise today. It's been a blast.
You're always welcome, everybody.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next month.
Bye.